I'm not sure who needs to hear this, but just because someone shares your blood doesn't mean they deserve space in your life. Especially when they threw you out like garbage, only to come crawling back years later asking for a piece of what you bled to earn. My name's Seth. I'm 34 now, but the story starts when I was 17 and 2 months from graduation. Growing up in a cramped two-story in South Minneapolis, it was always clear I was the extra in the family. My younger brother Blake was the golden one, charming, athletic, the one everyone adored at church and school. Me? I was the quiet one with average grades and a love for computers no one understood. It started with little things, Blake getting double gifts at Christmas while I got socks. Him never doing chores while I cleaned the whole kitchen. Him wrecking my bike and laughing while Dad told me to stop being dramatic. But things escalated when Blake knocked up his girlfriend at 21. My parents, Marcia and Randall, turned our home into a daycare overnight. Blake and his girlfriend Courtney moved in, and my bedroom turned into a nursery. I was told to be flexible. Eventually, I was told to sleep in the garage. Then one day, Randall sat me down and said, "Son, this house just isn't big enough anymore. You're almost a man. You'll figure it out." I didn't scream or cry. I packed my stuff. Took my laptop, my backpack, and the one thing I owned outright, a beat-up 1998 Dodge Ram. I finished high school living out of that truck. Slept behind strip malls. Showered at a 24-hour gym. Ate cup noodles in parking lots. I didn't tell anyone, pride's a hell of a thing. I just kept going. Years passed. I got work in IT freelance gigs, then a startup job. I learned to live cheap. Saved hard. Upgraded from the truck to a used camper. Then from the camper to a real job and eventually a small home outside the city. 3 bedrooms. A backyard. A driveway wide enough to park 3 cars. It felt surreal. I posted one picture on Facebook. Just one. And that's all it took for the past to knock back on my door. I still don't know how they got my address. The only people I'd told about the house were a few close friends and co-workers. I hadn't even posted the city name online. But sure enough, one Saturday afternoon, there was a knock. A knock I'll never forget. When I opened the door, I froze. There they were, my parents, my brother Blake, his wife Courtney, and their kids, standing on my porch like they owned the place. All 6 of them. Courtney had that smug little smile she always wore when she thought she'd won something. Blake looked bored. My mom clutched a plastic container of banana bread like it made everything okay. And the kids were already halfway across my yard before anyone said a word. I stepped outside and pulled the door mostly shut behind me. "What are you doing here?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "We just wanted to see your new home," Mom said sweetly. "We're so proud of you." "Proud?" I echoed. "You kicked me out." "Don't be so dramatic," she scoffed. "That was years ago. I didn't invite them in. They didn't care." Blake brushed past me, holding the youngest in one arm, and Courtney strutted in like she was on a house tour. Within minutes, they were opening closets, measuring window frames, and peeking into rooms. The kids were jumping on my couch. My dad took off his shoes and stretched out on the recliner like it was his. I followed them inside, stunned. It wasn't just invasive. It was strategic. Courtney walked into the guest bedroom, looked around slowly, and said, "This would be perfect for the baby's nursery." The air left my lungs. "Excuse me?" That's when Blake pulled me aside. He had this fake casual tone, like we were just 2 buddies chatting. "Listen, Seth. We're in a bit of a bind. The house is getting tight, and you've got all this space, just for yourself." "And?" I asked. "I was thinking," he said, smiling, "you could move your camper into the backyard. Just like old times. We move in here, everyone wins." I laughed. I genuinely couldn't help it. I thought he was joking. "You're serious?" He shrugged. "Come on, man. It's the right thing. You don't need all this space. We've got 4 kids now. Courtney's pregnant again. You remember what it was like growing up in a small house. You get it. I stared at him. You didn't even ask. You just assumed. Well, Mom and Dad said you'd understand, he replied. You always were the quiet one. The reasonable one. There it was. The old manipulation. Disguised as logic. Reasonable equals compliant. Quiet equals controllable. No, I said. You're not moving in here. Blake blinked. Why not? Because this is my house. I worked for it. I bled for it. You mocked me when I was sleeping in a truck. Now you want the keys? Blake's face hardened. You don't even have a family. What do you need it all for? And there it was, the entitlement. Like having kids gave him a right to claim what wasn't his. You know what? I said, pulling out my phone. I'm recording this. Just in case. Seriously? Dead serious. In the living room, Courtney turned around and glared at me. You'd really kick out your own blood, she hissed. You're being selfish, Seth. No. I'm being smart, I snapped. Get out. Do it for the kids, Mom pleaded. Do it for Blake, Dad added. No, I said, louder this time. Get out. The kids looked confused. Courtney was on the verge of tears, crocodile tears. And Blake? He just stared at me like I'd betrayed him. But for the first time in my life, I didn't back down. This wasn't their house. This wasn't their win. It was mine. I thought it was over. I thought they'd storm off, complain to Facebook, and let their passive aggression rot in silence. I was wrong. So wrong. For days after I kicked them out, I came home from work late, around 9 p.m. I was dead tired, but something felt off. My porch light was on. My trash can had been moved. There was a minivan parked at the end of the driveway. A familiar one. And then I saw it. The lock on my front door, drilled clean out. Lying on the welcome mat like it had been surgically removed. My heart pounded. I sprinted up the steps, threw the door open. And there they were. Blake and Courtney. Inside. With their kids. Already moving in. Boxes lined the walls. Toys littered the floor. The smell of microwaved mac and cheese filled the air. My living room? Destroyed. Courtney was folding clothes on my couch. Blake stood there with a stupid smug look like he'd just bought the place himself. What the hell are you doing? I shouted. Relax, Blake said, arms open. We're just settling in. You weren't using the space anyway. Courtney chimed in from behind a box. We made it cozy for the kids. You'll barely notice us. I snapped. You broke in. You drilled the damn lock off. Technically, we didn't break anything, Blake replied, like this was all just semantics. You left the place empty most days. Mom and Dad said you wouldn't mind if we. I mind. I really mind. I reached for my phone. Courtney lunged toward me, eyes wide. Wait. You don't need to call anyone. I'm already dialing. We have paperwork, Blake interrupted, holding up a printed lease. I paused, just long enough to glance at it. It was garbage. Some cheap PDF with a fake signature that vaguely resembled mine if I'd written it with my left hand while blindfolded. It even listed me as the lessor. Did you seriously forge this? I asked. We needed proof of residency, Blake shrugged. The school district lines up better here. My jaw dropped. Before I could say another word, my parents arrived. They pulled up in their SUV and stepped out like nothing was wrong. We told you, Seth, my mom said calmly. It's just better for everyone this way. You've got your camper. They've got the house. This is what families do, we support each other. You didn't support me when I needed a place to park. I shouted. You told me I was a burden. Dad crossed his arms. Well, times change. Blake has responsibilities now. So I have to pay for them? I fired back. You want me to live in the backyard while they raise a whole damn daycare inside my house? Courtney folded her arms. We're doing this for the kids. No. You're doing this for control. That's when I pulled out my phone and turned it around, showing them all the live feed. Doorbell cam. Records motion. I have footage of Blake breaking the lock. I have audio of everything you're saying right now. Want me to press charges? Suddenly, everyone got quiet. Courtney tried to cry again. Blake's face went pale. My dad looked like he wanted to hit me. My mom whispered, Seth, don't do this. You'll tear the family apart. You already did, I said. The moment you picked a side. And it wasn't mine. I gave them 10 minutes. 10 minutes to get their things and get out, or I was calling the cops for breaking and entering, fraud, and property damage. They cursed. They yelled. Courtney threw a box across the room. One of the kids started wailing. Blake tried to guilt-trip me about being childless and not understanding what real pressure is. Yeah? I said. Try living in a pickup truck in winter and tell me about pressure. They left. Furious. Cursing. Courtney actually spat on my porch. I changed the locks again that night. Installed deadbolts. Reinforced the doorframe. And just for fun? I left a sticky note on the door the next morning. Next time, bring a warrant. Not a fake lease. The next morning, my phone started buzzing like it was on fire. Calls. Texts. DMs. Even emails from cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. The common theme? Why are Blake and Courtney saying you're kicking your family onto the street? Did you really throw them out in the middle of the night? Your mom says you're going through something. They'd wasted no time. I imagined it, Courtney, sobbing dramatically in some family group chat, typing out some grand sob story. We just needed a roof. Seth's being cruel. He's changed. And maybe, yeah. I had changed. I'd grown a spine. And I wasn't going to let them break it again. So I told my side. Publicly. I wrote a long, brutal post on Facebook. Attached screenshots of the broken lock, the forged lease, and a photo of the drill they left on my porch like complete morons. I didn't name call. I didn't even swear. I just laid out every fact in order. From being kicked out before high school graduation, to sleeping in my truck, to building my life piece by piece, all while Blake and Courtney lived rent-free, had kid after kid, and called me selfish for not handing over the one thing I'd earned on my own. And I ended it with one line. Some people think having children gives them a right to other people's lives. It doesn't. By the end of the day, my post had hundreds of comments. Some silent family members broke their silence. Some people I barely remembered from holidays years ago messaged me privately, saying they'd always suspected Blake was the favorite. The tide turned fast. And when the tide turns on people like my parents, they panic. Exactly 1 week after the break-in incident, they returned. Not just them. They brought Blake, Courtney, all 4 kids, and more banana bread. They rang my doorbell and started pounding like it was a damn police raid. I was already watching them through the Ring camera. I opened the door, but only a crack. I'd installed 2 chain latches inside. They tried to shove it open anyway. The door rattled, but held. Let us in, Seth, my father barked. We need to talk. We talked. You broke into my house. You're making things worse by spreading lies online, my mother snapped. Everything I said was true. Want to read the comments? Most people agree with me. Courtney suddenly appeared in view, holding her pregnant belly with one hand like it was a shield and waving the other as if she were a damsel in a soap opera. "Please, Seth," she pleaded. "Do it for the kids." "Oh, shut up," I said flatly. "You spit on my porch last time you were here." Blake stepped forward, his voice shaking with rage. "You think this is over? You think a bunch of Facebook comments change the fact that you abandoned your family? No. You abandoned me at 17, I snapped. Now get off my porch, or I call the cops again." They didn't move. So I held up my phone. Recording. Again. My mother tried to guilt-trip me again. She even cried on cue. "You'll regret this when we're gone, Seth." And for once, I believed her. Because I could see the truth finally setting in. They couldn't control me anymore. And it terrified them. Courtney screamed something as they left. I didn't catch it all, just a bit about how I'd pay for tearing this family apart. Then she tripped over a toy one of her own kids dropped and stormed off barefoot across my lawn. That should have been the end of it. But Blake? He wasn't done. Because on Friday night, I came home to find a moving truck in my driveway. Again. Friday evening. I'd had a brutal week at work. My plan was simple: burritos, 2 beers, and a movie I'd seen a dozen times. I pulled into my driveway. And froze. A U-Haul truck sat there like it belonged. Boxes were piled on the porch. The front door was slightly ajar. And inside, I could hear children laughing. No. No, no, no. I jumped out of the car, ran up the steps. My key didn't work. They changed the lock. Again. The old one was lying on the mat, drilled through, just like last time. But this time, they hadn't even bothered to hide it. I pushed the door open and walked in. Courtney was in my living room, folding laundry on my couch, humming to herself like this was some sitcom. Her kids were running circles around her. A few moving boxes had already been opened. My rug was covered in goldfish crackers. Blake walked out from the kitchen, holding a damn cereal bowl. "Hey bro," he said, like we were roommates. "Didn't expect you back till later." I didn't answer. I was too stunned to speak. "What the hell is this?" I finally said. Courtney looked up and grinned. "We figured you'd come around eventually." "Came around to what?" "Letting your family move in. Blake told you it was the right thing. You just needed time to accept it." "You broke in," I said. My voice was shaking now, not from fear. From rage. "You drilled through my damn lock." Blake shrugged like it was nothing. "We didn't break anything inside. Everything's intact. And we didn't break in. We have a lease." He held up a piece of paper. I snatched it out of his hand. It was a forged rental agreement, with a signature that looked like it had been drawn by someone who'd never seen how I sign my name. "You actually think this will hold up? It's notarized." "By who?" I laughed bitterly. "Courtney's cousin?" He didn't answer. I pulled out my phone. Started recording. Courtney immediately dropped her fake happy act. "You are not calling the cops again," she snapped. "I absolutely am. Think about what this will do to the kids. You should have thought about that before breaking into someone's house and forging a lease." Right on cue, my parents pulled into the driveway. Of course. They walked up to the porch like they were arriving for Thanksgiving dinner. My mom even brought a tin of cookies. "Seth," she said gently. "Please don't make a scene. You people are unbelievable. It's not like you're being kicked out," she reasoned. "You still have the camper. You expect me to live in the backyard while they raise 4 kids in my house? Are you out of your minds?" "You don't have children, Seth," Dad chimed in. "Blake does. He needs the space more than you do." I looked him dead in the eyes. "And where were you when I needed space? Or a warm bed? Or even a f asterisk 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 ing sandwich when I was living in my truck? No one spoke. For once, no one had a clever excuse. Then Courtney snapped. "This is your fault," she shrieked. "You ruined everything. If you'd just done this for Blake like a decent human being, we wouldn't be in this position." And then she shoved me. With one hand still on her pregnant belly, she lunged at me, slapped the phone out of my hand, and started screaming. I stumbled back and picked it up, still recording. "Keep going," I said. "You're making this really easy for the cops." Blake tried to calm her, but it was too late. She screamed, cried, and shouted about being victimized, about how I was breaking the family apart, about how I didn't deserve this house. I told them all the same thing. "You have 10 minutes to pack your crap and leave, or I'll press charges for trespassing, breaking and entering, assault, and fraud. And I will win. You know I will." Mom looked at me with horror. "You wouldn't do that to your own family. You did it to me first." When I was 17. One of the kids started crying. The others followed. Blake looked shattered. Courtney was breathing heavily, mumbling something about how she could have had everything. And just like that, they started loading the boxes back into the U-Haul. I watched from the porch, my phone still recording, while the little empire they tried to build inside my house crumbled. Courtney refused to pick up one of the boxes. Just dropped it and walked to the van like a sulking child. As Blake lifted the last box, he turned to me. "You happy now?" he muttered. "You've taken everything from us." I just stared at him and said, "No. You tried to take everything from me. You'd think being publicly shamed off my property, in front of police, kids, and half the neighborhood would humble someone. But not my family. Not the people who once kicked me out at 17 for taking up space. Not the brother who forged my signature and broke into my home. And definitely not Courtney, the woman who thinks pregnancy is a forever get-out-of-jail-free card." So when I woke up the next day to dozens of texts and missed calls, I already knew what was happening. They were trying to flip the script. "Your mom says you called the cops on the kids? What's this about a fake lease? Blake told us you agreed. Dude, why are you making your family homeless?" They got to the family group chats before I could. Courtney, apparently, had taken it upon herself to write a multi-paragraph sob story and blast it to every cousin, aunt, and random relative we'd ever shared a Christmas ham with. She painted me as unstable. Said I had anger issues, that I was isolated, and worst of all jealous because I didn't have a wife or kids. I sat there, rereading her twisted novella over coffee, wondering just how deep their delusion ran. And then I did what I should have done long ago. I told the truth. In one long, brutal Facebook post. I told everyone how I was kicked out at 17, while Blake got my bedroom to turn into a nursery. How I lived out of a truck for 2 years. How they laughed at me when I was homeless, refused to let me park in their driveway unless I paid near market rent, and then came crawling back the second I bought a home of my own. I posted photos of the drilled-out lock, the forged rental agreement, a screenshot of the text Blake sent me years ago calling me a bum. I kept it cold. Factual. No rage, no insults. But I ended with this. I didn't get this house because someone handed it to me. I got it because I worked through hell to get here. And no amount of guilt or blood ties gives anyone the right to steal what I built. Then I hit post. And the silence that followed was glorious. Well, not entirely silent. My inbox blew up. But not with hate. I had no idea. That's so messed up. You don't owe them anything. I'm sorry for believing their side. Aunt Debbie, the family's unofficial historian and Olympic-level gossip, reshared my post with a caption that simply read, "Things make a lot more sense now." Then came the flood. Cousins. Uncles. Old neighbors. All validating my story. Some even chimed in with their own experiences with Blake and my parents. Turns out I wasn't the only one they treated like dirt over the years. Even better? Someone leaked Courtney's rant texts to the group. Screenshots of her telling people I deserve to be humbled, and that I'd regret not doing this for Blake. Yeah. Those didn't age well. By the end of the weekend, the court of public opinion had made its ruling. They were out. I was in. And the fallout came fast. Monday morning, I got a call. Not from Blake. From my dad. Seth, he said. You need to take that post down. You're airing dirty laundry. You made the mess. I'm just shining a light on it. This isn't how family handles things. You're right. Family doesn't kick out their kids, forge leases, and try to steal their homes. He hung up on me. But the damage was already done. They'd tried to humiliate me. But all they'd done was rip off the mask they'd worn for decades. And finally, the rest of the family saw it. The Facebook post had done more than just set the record straight, it ripped open old wounds the family had been pretending didn't exist. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the outcast. Blake and our parents were. And Courtney? She was getting radio silence from nearly everyone. I figured they'd lay low for a while. I figured wrong. Because 2 weeks later, I got a knock at my door. This time, it wasn't a full-on invasion. It was just Blake. Alone. Looking broken. No smug grin. No fake charm. Just a man who looked like he hadn't slept in days. He didn't say a word at first. Just stood there on my porch, holding something in his hand. A folded piece of paper. Shaky hands. Eyes red. I need to ask you something, he said quietly. And I need you to tell me the truth. I stepped outside. Closed the door behind me. Courtney, he said. You ever hear anything about her messing around? I blinked. Was this really happening? Why are you asking me? Because I found some texts. From a guy I don't know. From months ago. He called her baby mama. Said he missed her. And then, there's this. He unfolded the paper. A DNA test. It listed paternity results for his youngest child. The baby born just months ago. Probability of paternity, 0%. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Blake stood there, eyes locked on mine. I didn't want to believe it. I really didn't. But, he's not mine. He looked like he was about to collapse. And then, like we were in some cruel movie, he laughed. Not a real laugh. Something hollow. I gave up everything for her. Let her manipulate me, control me, lie to me for this? I didn't say anything. What was there to say? He sat down on my porch step and buried his face in his hands. I'm a damn fool. We sat there in silence for a few minutes. Then he said something I never thought I'd hear from him. I'm sorry, Seth. For everything. It didn't fix things. But it mattered. He admitted that Courtney had been isolating him for years. That she controlled the finances, the parenting, even the narrative. He said he'd been too deep in it to see clearly. That he'd thought I was just bitter and selfish. But now? I get it, he said. Everything you said about her, about mom and dad. You weren't wrong. Blake ended up crashing in my camper that night. Not in the house. I still wasn't ready for that. But he needed space. And I owed his kids more than I owed him. He explained that when he confronted Courtney with the DNA results, she went nuclear. Screamed. Denied. Cried. Then admitted it. Then denied again. Classic Darvo, deny. Attack. Reverse victim and offender. She said it was just one mistake. That Blake wasn't man enough lately. That she needed to feel wanted. He told me she threw a candle at the wall when he said he wanted a divorce. And that their oldest son, just 8 years old, saw the whole thing. The next day, he filed. He wanted full custody of the 3 kids that were his. And for the record to show that the baby, the one born from betrayal, wasn't. It turns out we live in a fault divorce state. Meaning, all her cheating, gaslighting, and abuse mattered. Blake's lawyer, a pit bull in a gray suit, gathered everything. Texts, call logs, financial records, even ring footage from my porch showing Courtney assaulting me. "We're gonna bury her," he said. Legally speaking, of course. And that's exactly what started happening. Suddenly, my parents weren't so vocal about doing things for Blake. Because now Blake didn't want Courtney either. And Courtney? She started slipping. Posting cryptic stuff on social media. Some people don't appreciate what they had until it's gone. You can't cancel a real woman. I'm her. Except nobody was commenting. Nobody was liking. And nobody, not even her flying monkeys, were defending her anymore. I thought the story might finally be over. But Courtney? She had one more play. One final act of petty revenge. And it involved eggs. I should have seen it coming. When people like Courtney lose control, they don't retreat, they lash out. And she'd already lost everything. Her husband. Her golden status with my parents. The illusion of being a perfect mom. The family she tried to steal. So what do you do when the world stops listening to your tantrums? You sneak out at 3 a.m. and throw eggs at a man's truck. I didn't even know it happened until the next morning. I walked outside, coffee in hand, and found my '98 Dodge Ram covered in half-dried yolk. Dripping down the windshield. Smeared on the hood. Crusted across the side mirrors. At first, I thought it was just random vandalism. Until I checked the footage. Ring camera. Front angle. 2:57 a.m. A person appears, walking on foot wrapped in layers of gray sweats, a hoodie pulled over tight, scarf around the mouth, oversized sunglasses covering the rest. But the body language? The height? The rage in the way they threw each egg like a personal insult? It was her. It had to be. And the moment she turned to leave, she tripped over the curb and screamed. Loud enough to spike the mic. That voice? Undeniably Courtney. But that wasn't the best part. She forgot to hide one detail, her shoes. Bright pink, off-brand Uggs with a fake diamond buckle. The same one she wore in every single Facebook story for the last 6 months. The police didn't take it seriously. Just some Halloween prank, one of them said. I still filed the report anyway. Because I knew it wouldn't stop there if she thought she got away with it. I printed out screenshots and handed them to my neighbors. Put up a few flyers on posts around the street. Unknown vandal. Caught on cam. If you recognize this person, contact Seth. I knew what I was doing. And I knew Courtney would see it. She did. She called Blake fuming, furious, and in full meltdown mode. Demanded I take the signs down. Claimed I was harassing her. Told him I was obsessed. Blake didn't defend her. He told her, and I quote, "You egged a grown man's truck. Grow the hell up." After that, she vanished from social media completely. No new posts. No stories. No passive-aggressive guilt trips. Nothing. Like she finally realized no one was listening anymore. Now, Blake lives back with our parents in the camper I used to call home. I parked it in their backyard for him, fully powered and insulated. His oldest son finally has his own bedroom. The girls share. But they're happier than I've ever seen them. And my parents? They've changed. Not drastically. But enough. They go to church now. They apologized genuinely for the way they treated me. My dad even said the words "I'm sorry." Once. That's a start. But most importantly, they finally stopped saying that cursed phrase. Do it for Blake. Now it's, "Thank you for helping him." And me? I still live in my house. No more drama. No more locks drilled out. No more forged leases or midnight family raids. Just me, my porch, my old Dodge, and peace. I keep the camper cleaned and ready. Not because I need it, but because it reminds me of how far I've come. From sleeping in a truck behind a gas station to owning the home everyone once said I didn't deserve. And if I ever doubt myself again, I just look out my window at that camper. And I smile.